Marry me. Just for 6 months. Lila blinked. Sure she had misheard. I am sorry. What did you just say? 2. The millionaire proposed a fake marriage to save his company but lost his heart instead. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain came down in silver sheets over Manhattan, blurring the skyline beyond the glass walls of the rooftop terrace. The city lights pulsed beneath the storm like 1,000 restless hearts. At a marble table sat Ethan Ward, 33, CEO of Ward Enterprises, his suit immaculate despite the weather. He stared at the woman across from him, Lila Moore, 26, an accountant with worry in her eyes and rain clinging to her hair. Between them lay a single sheet of paper, edges curling from the damp air. Ethan's voice was steady, clipped, the kind that had closed billion-dollar deals. Marry me, just for 6 months. Lila blinked, sure she had misheard. I am sorry. What did you just say? Ethan slid the contract across the table, his signature already in black ink. It is not love, it is business. My company's board demands that I be married to retain control. You need financial stability, and I need a name beside mine. We both win. Thunder rolled in the distance. Lila looked down at the paper-typed clauses, bolded lines, one phrase standing out. Temporary marital agreement. Her stomach turned. You are serious. I do not joke about survival, he replied. His tone softened just slightly. Your mother's hospital bills? I can take care of them. All of them. For a moment, neither spoke. The storm filled the silence. Lila's fingers tightened around the strap of her worn leather bag. She thought of her mother's oxygen machine, the overdue notice taped to their apartment door, the way the world had stopped caring whether she sank or swam. She met his eyes. They were cold, calculating, but behind them, something flickered. Exhaustion, maybe. Loneliness. What happens after 6 months? She asked quietly. Ethan leaned back, his expression unreadable. We end it. You walk away debt-free. I keep my company. No one gets hurt. Lila gave a shaky laugh that did not sound like her. No one ever gets hurt in fake marriages, right? Ethan did not answer. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and placed a velvet box on the table. Inside, a diamond ring caught the city's lightning for half a second before the lid snapped shut. Wear it tomorrow. The press will be there. Rain dripped from the edge of the canopy, splashing against her shoes. The night smelled of wet concrete and uncertainty. Lila took a slow breath, eyes on the contract, the ring, and the man whose life was built on control. She could walk away, let him drown with his empire. Or she could save her mother and herself for a price she could not yet measure. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. All right, Mr. Ward. You have a deal. Ethan nodded once. Good. My driver will pick you up at 8. He stood, gathering the papers, the stormlight tracing the sharp lines of his face. For a fleeting second, his eyes softened as they met hers again. You will not regret this, he said. But as Lila watched him disappear into the rain, she could not shake the feeling that one of them would. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the city washed clean beneath a pale gray sky. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ward Enterprises, the skyline shimmered in streaks of gold. Inside the conference room, Lila sat, stiffly at one end of a long glass table, hands folded in her lap. She wore a borrowed beige dress, her hair pinned into an updo that still felt foreign. The diamond ring on her finger caught the light, heavy with meaning she did not understand. At the opposite end, Ethan Ward flipped through a folder, his movements precise, detached. The faint hum of the air conditioner filled the silence between them. Finally, he looked up, his tone clipped but not unkind. From today on, you are Mrs. Ward in public. Appear confident. Smile when necessary, speak little when not. The media will be watching. Lila tried to steady her voice. And in private? In private, he said, setting the folder aside. You are free to live your life. The penthouse staff has been briefed. They will treat you as Mrs. Ward. Use the black card for personal expenses. Keep receipts. My assistant will handle logistics. It sounded less like a marriage and more like a job orientation. She nodded slowly. Understood. For a second, something softer flickered in his eyes. You do not have to look so terrified. You are not walking into a trap. Just a partnership. Lila gave a faint smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Partnership. Right. The door opened, and a tall woman in her 40s entered, holding a digital tablet. This is Claire, my executive assistant, Ethan said. She will coordinate our schedule. Claire smiled politely at Lila, the kind of professional smile that hid 100 questions. We have the announcement event at the Langford Hotel tomorrow evening. The press expects a photo call. Ethan nodded. Make sure her wardrobe is handled. Something understated, elegant. Lila looked down at her simple dress and felt heat rise in her cheeks. Claire's eyes softened. Do not worry. We will make sure you shine, Mrs. Ward. After the meeting, Ethan walked her to the private elevator. The air between them felt fragile, filled with words neither dared to speak. When the elevator doors closed, she turned to him. You really think this will work? It has to, he said quietly. Without a stable image, the board will move to remove me. Ward Enterprises is already bleeding. Something in his tone, fatigue, maybe fear, broke the edge of his composure. Lila found herself asking, Why does it matter so much to you? He looked at her for a long moment before answering. Because this company is all I have left of my father. He built it from nothing. I will not watch it fall apart. The elevator chimed softly as they reached the top floor. He stepped out first, holding the door. You should rest. A car will pick you up at 8 tomorrow. She hesitated, then asked, And after tomorrow? His jaw tightened. Then the performance begins. That night, the penthouse felt like another world. The marble floors reflected the city lights. A housekeeper showed Lila to a guest room bigger than her entire apartment. She stood by the window, staring down at the river glowing with reflections. On the bedside table lay a white envelope embossed with silver letters, Ward Enterprises Gala, attendance mandatory. She traced the letters with her fingertip, her mind spinning. 6 months of pretending. 6 months of playing wife to a man she barely knew. Across town, Ethan sat alone in his home office, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. He stared at a framed photograph of his father, shaking hands at the company's groundbreaking ceremony. The empire now balanced on lies, contracts, and an arrangement he could barely justify. He exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of his nose. Just business, he muttered. But even as he said it, he knew it was no longer that simple. Outside, the city kept breathing neon lights, traffic, life moving on. Yet for both of them, the clock had already started counting down to the moment when pretending would no longer be enough. The next evening, the Langford Hotel glowed beneath crystal chandeliers and flashes of camera light. Guests in tailored suits and shimmering gowns filled the grand ballroom, their laughter echoing beneath the string quartet's melody. Outside the entrance, photographers waited, shouting names, chasing headlines. Inside a black limousine parked at the curb, Lila sat in silence. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers trembling slightly against the satin fabric of her evening gown. The dress, a midnight blue silk chosen by Claire, hugged her frame with quiet elegance. Ethan sat beside her, perfectly composed, scrolling through his phone. The faint reflection of camera lights flickered in his eyes. She exhaled slowly. You are really calm for someone about to fake a marriage in front of half of New York. He looked up, his tone even. Nerves do not help. Precision does. And what am I supposed to do? Smile like I belong? He gave the smallest hint of a smile. Exactly. You are Mrs. Ward. They believe what we make them believe. The car stopped. A security guard opened the door, and the noise from outside rushed in, cheers, camera shutters, the call of reporters. Ethan stepped out first, offering his hand. His touch was firm, steady, like a signal. Lila took it, her heart pounding as she stepped into the blinding lights. Mr. Ward, over here! Who is the new Mrs. Ward? Is it true the wedding was private? They moved together, synchronized by necessity. Ethan placed a protective hand at her back, guiding her through the flashing lights toward the marble staircase. The cameras loved it, the confident CEO and the mysterious woman beside him. Inside, the ballroom shimmered in gold and champagne tones. A large banner read, Ward Enterprises Annual Gala. Waiters glided past with trays of champagne, and everywhere Lila turned, faces stared, curious and calculating. Ethan leaned close enough for only her to hear. Remember what I said? Breathe. Smile. Speak when spoken to. She nodded, trying not to let her nerves show. Yes, Mr. Ward. He glanced at her, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Ethan. Tonight, you should call me Ethan. As they entered the spotlight for the press announcement, he guided her toward the podium. His hand never left hers. The CEO who had once seemed carved from marble now looked almost human. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan began, his voice carrying across the ballroom, smooth and confident. Thank you for joining us tonight. Ward Enterprises has always stood for trust and legacy, and tonight I am proud to introduce someone who represents both to me, my wife, Lila Ward. A ripple went through the room, surprise, then applause. The lights found her face, and for a heartbeat, Lila forgot to breathe. She smiled faintly, not because the cameras demanded it, but because of the way Ethan's voice softened when he said, my wife. After the speech, guests approached, one after another, board members, journalists, old family friends. Questions blurred together, polite and probing. How did you meet? When was the wedding? Where will the honeymoon be? Lila answered with grace, each lie smooth and consistent, just as they had rehearsed. But near the dessert table, a silver-haired man with a sharp gaze approached. Mrs. Ward, he said, extending a hand. Richard Cole. I served with your husband's father on the board for 20 years. You are quite the surprise. Lila smiled politely. I suppose life is full of surprises. Cole's smile did not reach his eyes. Indeed, though I do hope this one lasts longer than your husband's last merger. Ethan appeared at her side almost instantly, his arm sliding around her waist. Richard, he said coolly, try to enjoy the evening instead of measuring its profit. The older man chuckled but stepped back. Of course, Ethan. Congratulations. As Cole walked away, Lila looked up at Ethan. You did not have to do that. He met her gaze. Yes, I did. No one disrespects my wife. The words hung in the air between them, heavier than the applause. Lila looked away, unsure why her chest felt tight. Later that night, after the final photographs and the endless smiles, Ethan walked her to the car. The streets shimmered with reflections of neon lights. You did well tonight, he said quietly. She gave a tired laugh. You mean I survived? Better than most would. He opened the car door for her. Rest. Tomorrow, we start the real act. As the limousine pulled away, Lila glanced back through the window. Ethan stood on the hotel steps, the city lights painting his silhouette against the dark. She could not tell if he looked like a man who had won or one who had just started losing something he could not name. The following week blurred into a rhythm Lila had never known before. Mornings began with fittings, etiquette lessons, and media briefings. Evenings ended in glittering events filled with strangers who smiled too wide and spoke in rehearsed compliments. Claire's team transformed her wardrobe, speech, and posture. She learned how to walk beside Ethan without looking overwhelmed, how to hold a glass without trembling, how to nod at questions without revealing too much. The city, once a place of anonymity, had turned into a stage, and she was learning her lines one headline at a time. Ethan, meanwhile, seemed to exist in two versions, the businessman in the boardroom and the husband in public. He was polite, perfectly composed, never unkind but always distant. He spoke to her between meetings only when necessary, and yet, when cameras flashed, his hand found her waist as if it belonged there. One afternoon, Claire walked into the penthouse with a garment bag and an agenda. Tomorrow is the charity luncheon at the Metropolitan Hall, she said, handing Lila a folder of talking points. Smile, thank the donors, and let Ethan do the speaking. Lila nodded, flipping through the notes. I understand. Claire paused, then smiled gently. You are doing well. Better than anyone expected. Better than Ethan expected? The assistant hesitated before replying. Especially him. That night, Lila stood on the balcony overlooking the Hudson River. The city lights shimmered below, the cool wind tugging at her hair. She thought of her mother back home, finally resting without fear of another hospital bill. For the first time in years, she had money in her account, food in the fridge, safety. But peace still felt far away. Behind her, the sliding glass door opened. Ethan stepped out, sleeves rolled up, his tie loosened. He held 2 cups of coffee. "You have been on this balcony for almost an hour," he said, handing her one. "Are you thinking about running away?" She smiled faintly. "If I was, I would not tell you." He chuckled, a quiet, low sound that surprised her. "Fair." For a moment, they stood in silence, the wind carrying the hum of distant traffic. Lila studied him from the corner of her eye, the tired lines beneath his eyes, the weight on his shoulders that even a $1,000 suit could not hide. "Why did you really ask me?" she asked softly. "You could have chosen anyone from your world, someone who fits." He stared at the skyline for a long moment before answering. "Because everyone in my world has a price." "You did not." Her breath caught. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," he said quietly. "You did not take the money for yourself. You took it for someone else. That tells me everything I need to know." The honesty in his voice unsettled her more than the lie they lived. She looked away, pretending to sip her coffee. "You think that makes me noble?" "I think it makes you real." The next day, at the charity luncheon, the performance continued. Cameras flashed, journalists asked about their married life, and Ethan delivered polished answers. When one reporter pressed too hard, hinting that the marriage had been sudden, Lila smiled gracefully. "Sometimes," she said, "life does not ask for permission before it changes." The crowd laughed, charmed. Ethan glanced at her, a trace of surprise in his expression. Later, in the car, he looked over from the driver's seat. "That line about life not asking permission, where did that come from?" She shrugged. "From surviving." He nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. "I liked it." That night, when she returned to her room, she found a small envelope on her vanity. Inside was a handwritten note in Ethan's precise, clean handwriting. "For tomorrow's dinner, wear something red. You will stand out in the best way." It was simple, unsigned, but something in it felt strangely personal. She placed it carefully inside her jewelry box, beside the fake wedding ring that sparkled under the lamplight. And for the first time since she had signed the contract, Lila realized the impossible line between duty and emotion was beginning to blur. The following evening, the penthouse was alive with quiet urgency. Stylists moved like shadows, steaming dresses, arranging hairpins, polishing cufflinks. Tonight was not just another gala, it was the annual Ward Enterprises board dinner, a night where appearances meant everything. For Ethan, it was a test. For Lila, it was survival. Claire entered the room with her tablet in hand. "The guests have started to arrive. Mr. Ward is waiting in the foyer." She gave Lila a once-over and smiled. "Red suits you. Remember, confidence and silence will take you further than words tonight." Lila nodded, smoothing her gown. It was the first red dress she had ever owned, elegant but not loud, with a neckline that caught the light like liquid fire. As she stepped into the marble hallway, Ethan turned toward her. For a heartbeat, his usual composure slipped, his eyes softened, then he quickly masked it with a polite smile. "You look prepared," he said. "Prepared is better than terrified," she replied. He offered his arm. "Then let us be convincing." They entered the ballroom together. The room hushed for a second, and Lila felt every gaze turn toward them. The board members, investors, and executives, people who measured worth in profit margins, now whispered behind champagne glasses. Ethan guided her to their table near the front. "Remember," he murmured, "this crowd respects control. Never let them see fear." "I learned from the best," she whispered back. The dinner began with speeches, handshakes, and subtle power plays hidden behind laughter. Lila smiled when necessary, nodded at names she did not know, and listened as Ethan delivered his address about the company's expansion. His voice was strong, confident, the kind that filled a room. When he finished, the applause echoed through the hall. A silver-haired board member, Richard Cole, again rose from his seat, glass in hand. "To Mr. Ward and his beautiful wife," Cole said smoothly, his tone just shy of mockery, "it is refreshing to see the company finally embracing family values." The crowd chuckled. Lila felt her stomach tighten. Cole continued, his eyes fixed on her. "Tell us, Mrs. Ward, how did you capture our young CEO's heart? Surely not through balance sheets." The laughter grew louder. Ethan's jaw tightened. Lila felt heat rush to her face but managed a steady smile. "Actually," she said calmly, "I believe hearts are not captured, they are earned. And if you had the pleasure of working with your CEO every day, you would understand why." The table went silent for a moment. Then someone clapped, followed by a wave of applause. Cole's smirk faltered. Ethan turned toward her, an unreadable expression crossing his face. After dinner, as guests mingled near the stage, one of the waiters stumbled, sending a tray of wine glasses crashing near the head table. The sound shattered the calm. Without thinking, Lila knelt to help the waiter, gathering shards while others stepped back. The cameras clicked an unscripted moment of grace. Ethan was beside her in seconds, helping her to her feet. "You do not need to do that," he murmured. "Neither do you," she replied. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, the noise around them disappeared. Later, when the crowd thinned, Ethan pulled her aside near the balcony doors. "What you did tonight handling Cole, the press, even the accident you made them see something real." Lila tilted her head. "I thought this was supposed to be fake." "It was," he said quietly, "until you walked into the room." For the first time, his walls seemed to lower. The guarded CEO looked almost human beneath the chandelier light. Lila wanted to say something, but before she could, Claire appeared. "Ethan, the financial press wants a statement. They are waiting by the atrium." He nodded, glancing at Lila once more. "Stay here. I will not be long." As he walked away, Lila stepped toward the open balcony. The city stretched out before her, alive, indifferent, endless. She leaned against the railing, her heart racing. Somewhere below, car horns and laughter blended with the hum of the night. Behind her, through the glass doors, Ethan's reflection moved among the reporters, calm and commanding. But she could not shake the strange ache in her chest, the realization that somewhere between rehearsed smiles and borrowed affection, something inside her had stopped pretending. And for the first time since the contract began, she was afraid not of being exposed, but of what might happen if the truth no longer needed to be hidden. The gala ended late, and the drive back to the penthouse passed in near silence. The city glowed beyond the tinted windows, every light a reminder of the world they had to keep convincing. Lila sat beside Ethan, her hands folded in her lap, the diamond ring on her finger catching the faint reflections of the passing streetlights. When they arrived, the elevator carried them straight to the top floor. Ethan loosened his tie, running a hand through his hair, the exhaustion of the evening finally showing. "You handled yourself well tonight," he said quietly. "Better than some of my own executives." Lila smiled faintly. "Maybe because I do not have to fake who I am." He turned to her, an eyebrow raised. "Do you think I do?" She hesitated. "I think you spend more time pretending than anyone I have ever met." Ethan let out a soft laugh, but it did not reach his eyes. "Pretending is how you survive in my world." "Then maybe your world needs fixing," she said, her voice gentle but firm. He studied her for a long moment, then looked away. "You really believe people can change, do you not?" "I believe they have to," she replied. "Otherwise, what is the point of all this?" The conversation lingered in the air long after they fell silent. Ethan walked toward the balcony, opening the glass doors. Cool night air swept into the room. "Come," he said. "You should see this view without the noise." Lila joined him outside. The city stretched endlessly below, a sea of lights and motion. From up here, the chaos looked almost peaceful. Ethan rested his hands on the railing, his expression unreadable. "My father used to stand here," he said. "He would look out at the skyline and tell me that success means control, that if you can manage every detail, nothing can hurt you." He paused, his gaze distant. He was wrong. The day he died, I learned there are things you cannot control, no matter how hard you try. Lila turned toward him. You have been carrying that weight alone. He met her eyes. I do not know how to put it down. The wind tugged at her hair. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe you do not need to carry it. Maybe you just need to stop fighting everything. For a moment, he said nothing. The city hummed below, the lights shimmering across his face. Then he spoke, softer than before. You make it sound easy. It is not, she said. But it is possible. Ethan looked at her then, really looked. The usual hardness in his eyes was gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. You are not supposed to matter this much, he murmured. Her heart stuttered. Neither are you. He reached out as if to brush a loose strand of hair from her face, but stopped himself halfway. They stood frozen, the distance between them suddenly fragile, electric. The storm that had started as pretense was becoming something real neither of them had expected. He stepped back, clearing his throat. You should rest. Tomorrow will be busy. Lila nodded, though her pulse still raced. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Lila. She turned and walked toward her room but paused in the doorway. You do not have to keep being the man everyone expects you to be, she said softly. You just have to be the man who told me the truth tonight. Ethan did not answer. He stood by the railing, watching her reflection fade from the glass. Long after she was gone, he remained there, the city still alive beneath him. For years, he had built his life on contracts, numbers, and promises made on paper. But as the night stretched on, he realized the most dangerous promise was the one his heart had already made without his consent. Inside the penthouse, Lila sat on the edge of her bed, the city's glow spilling across her face. She took off the ring, setting it beside Ethan's handwritten note, the one that said, "Wear something red." Her hand lingered over it for a moment. She whispered into the quiet room. This was never supposed to feel real. But it did. And somewhere between obligation and truth, both of them were beginning to lose the parts of themselves that had once felt safe. The morning came too quickly. The first thing Ethan saw when he stepped into his office was a headline flashing across every business screen in the city. Fake marriage scandal at Ward Enterprises, sources reveal, contract behind CEO's wedding. His stomach dropped. On his desk, a printed copy of the article waited, highlighted and circled by someone on the board. Beneath it, another headline. Anonymous insider confirms. The marriage was a corporate strategy. Claire entered quietly, holding her tablet. Her voice was tight. The press will not stop calling. The shareholders are panicking. The board has demanded an emergency meeting in 1 hour. Ethan closed his eyes, his jaw tightening. Who leaked it? We do not know yet, she said carefully, but they claim to have a photo of the original contract. Across the city, Lila's phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from unknown numbers flooded her screen reporters, gossip blogs, angry strangers. The story had gone viral in less than an hour. Gold digger, fraud, actress. The words burned into her eyes. When she arrived at the office, security guards blocked her from entering the elevator. Mr. Ward is in a closed meeting, one said. He left orders not to let anyone in. Her chest tightened. She took a step back, confusion and shame crashing together. Upstairs, the boardroom was chaos. The members demanded answers, their voices sharp and overlapping. Was the marriage real? Did you pay her? Do you understand what this has done to our stock? Ethan stood at the end of the table, silent until the noise faded. You think I planned this? He said quietly. You think I would risk everything just to keep a title? Richard Cole leaned forward, smirking. Whether you meant to or not, you made us all look like fools. The only way to contain this is to remove you as CEO. The words hit like a blow. Ethan clenched his fists but said nothing. Later that afternoon, he found Lila waiting outside the building. Her face was pale, eyes red from crying. They will not let me in, she said. Is it true? Are they saying you paid me to marry you? He exhaled, his voice heavy. They have proof of the contract. Her expression shattered. You said no one would ever see it. I do not know how they got it, he said, reaching for her arm. Lila, you have to believe me. She pulled away. I believed you, Ethan. I believed this was more than paper. He took a step forward, but she shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. "You said it was just business," she whispered. "And now I know you meant it." Before he could stop her, she turned and walked away through the storm of flashing cameras outside. Ethan stood frozen, surrounded by reporters, their questions a blur. For the first time, he had no answers, and as the cameras closed in, he realized the truth was not what he had lost, but who. Days passed in silence. The story refused to die. Every news outlet replayed the same headline, every investor demanded answers, and every call Ethan received was another reminder of how quickly power could vanish. Ward Enterprises' stock continued to fall, and the board moved forward with a vote to suspend him. For the first time in his career, Ethan Ward had no control. He sat alone in his office late one night, the city outside bathed in the cold glow of winter lights. On his desk lay the contract, the same document that had started everything. The ink was still sharp, his signature bold beside hers. Beside it rested something else, her sketchbook, the one she had left behind in her room. The cover was worn, its corners bent. He opened it and saw pages filled with pencil drawings, portraits of him, not the CEO, not the perfect image from magazines, but the tired, human version she had seen when no one else had looked close enough. A folded note slipped out from the back. It was her handwriting. "You do not need to be perfect, Ethan. You just need to be honest." He sat there for a long time, the city humming beneath the glass. Then, with a sudden clarity, he knew what he had to do. The next morning, Ward Enterprises held a public press conference. Cameras flashed as Ethan stepped up to the podium, the contract in one hand, her sketchbook in the other. His voice was steady but stripped of its usual polish. "I built this company on control," he began. "But somewhere along the way, I forgot that control without integrity means nothing. The contract you have all seen is real. I wrote it. I asked her to marry me to protect this company. But what you do not know is that she never took the money I promised her. She stayed because she believed in something I did not, honesty." The room fell silent. The flashes slowed. Ethan continued, his tone soft but unwavering. "I love her, not because she saved the company, because she reminded me that power without purpose is just fear in disguise." He placed the sketchbook on the podium and stepped back, allowing the cameras to capture the drawing of his face, the one Lila had sketched. "Ward Enterprises will continue under new management. I accept full responsibility. But before I go, there is one last thing I want to make clear. The marriage may have started as fake, but my feelings never were." The press erupted in noise, but Ethan did not stay to hear it. He walked off the stage, his steps slow, deliberate. For the first time, the man who had always lived by contracts had torn one up not with ink, but with truth. Somewhere across the city, Lila watched the broadcast from a small cafe window. When he said her name, she froze, tears welling in her eyes. He had chosen honesty, and in doing so, he had finally set them both free. A year later, New York glowed beneath a soft, spring rain. The Ward Enterprises building stood taller than ever, now bearing a new name on its bronze plaque, the Moore Foundation for Integrity. The company that once symbolized control had been reborn under a new purpose, funding education for underprivileged youth and supporting ethical leadership programs. Inside the rooftop hall where their story had begun, guests gathered for the foundation's first anniversary gala. The chandeliers cast a golden light across the room, and soft jazz filled the air. At the center of it all, Lila Moore moved with quiet grace, her red gown a mirror of that night long ago. She smiled as she greeted donors and volunteers, her eyes calm and confident. Across the room, Ethan watched her from a distance. He had returned to the company months ago, not as CEO, but as a board advisor. The scandal had faded, replaced by respect for his public honesty and his decision to step down. Yet even now, as the room buzzed with conversation, his attention stayed fixed on her. When their eyes met, she paused, her breath catching for just a second. He made his way through the crowd, stopping in front of her with that same quiet composure he had carried the night they first met. "Congratulations," he said softly. "The foundation looks incredible. You made it happen." She smiled. "We made it happen. You gave me the chance." He shook his head. No, Lila, you gave me one. There was a pause, a tender silence that carried everything they had not said in months. Finally, she spoke. So, what brings you here, Mr. Ward? Another business proposal? Ethan smiled faintly and reached into his pocket. When his hand emerged, it held a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a ring, simple, real, glinting under the golden lights. This time, he said, his voice steady, no contracts, no signatures, just a promise. Her eyes filled with tears, but she laughed softly. Are you sure you can handle something without terms and conditions? He took her hand gently. I can handle the truth. And the truth is, I love you. The room around them faded as he slid the ring onto her finger. Applause rippled through the hall, but neither of them looked away from each other. Ethan whispered, You once told me life does not ask for permission before it changes. I think I finally understand what you meant. Lila smiled, her voice trembling but certain. Then let us stop asking permission and start living. He leaned in, and the crowd seemed to vanish. Outside, the rain fell softly against the glass walls, the city glowing below like 1,000 witnesses to a new beginning. For the first time, there were no deals, no lies, no debts, just two people who had finally chosen love over power and truth over fear. The camera of life pulled back on the image of them standing together beneath the golden lights, the skyline stretching wide behind them, a quiet promise hanging in the air. This time, it was for real.